I'm done. My first short story written. First page was started to be written on the 24th of August. Version 1.0 is here. Version 1.0 will stay here. 1.0.0. I don't know who will see this besides me, but it's cool. It's cool to have it. I just finished digitizing my very first short story of the Forgotten Songs universe, and it's weird. I've written it in hand first. I've now digitized it, and here I am. Something I always seem to relearn whenever I do a project, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I tend to use a lot of time in just not getting going, if that makes sense. And what I learned, especially during the writing by hand of Calamity, once I just started, I sort of just kept going. Especially after the first couple of days, I felt like I really got into the flow really quickly, and I just wrote. That was amazing. That was an amazing feeling. It's the same lesson. Just goddamn do it, get better at it as we go, and that's the whole point of this project. It was in August 2022 that I made the first Calamity stuff. I started out doing a background checklist. I wanted to do basic like description of dwarves, of the structure, the society structure, the religions they had, the rituals that they would do, you know, to get a feel for this culture that I wanted to show. These short stories, their main purpose, besides telling good stories, is to show the culture of the different races of this universe. So, you know, I thought I needed all of it, and I still think I need that all of this, like a basic description of the societies, where they come from, where did they go, where did they come from, the naming conventions, the rituals, the marriage, birth, death, you know. Even though it may not appear in the story itself, I figured it was very important to have. I also did some basic Dwarven language. I thought it would be cool to have like East Asian, Chinese sort of vibe to it. So because they're very much inspired by that, their language would also be inspired by ancient Chinese and traditional Chinese. After sort of having that down, I could move on to having personas. I come from a web development background. Well, one of my backgrounds is web development, and one of the things when you had to do a new website was to make personas, like use cases for your website. And so I brought this into Calamity, and I think this is probably the most important document that I made. We have a name, we have the age, we have what they used to be called, their appearance, their occupations, abilities, family and background, you know, belief, the temper, the values, the needs, the goals, the desires, insecurities, and giant quirks. I made this just because I wanted to do it. I wanted them to feel like persons. And I feel like once I was writing with my quill, it's not a quill, pen, you know, it helped me so much that I knew where they came from. These characters, I knew what they liked and what they wanted out of life, and I knew how they would feel and react. That then led into my biggest mistake, I think. The synopsis for Calamity, you know, a synopsis is supposed to be like a brief story outline, like these points are the ones that you need to go through. I had a very strong ending in mind, a very strong beginning, I think, and a very strong ending in mind, and they are pretty much the same as I had thought them out to be, because I had spent so much time with Calamity in my head before I did something with it. But yeah, I wanted to make a synopsis then to have a structure that I knew I could stick to, and that's all fine and dandy But where my biggest mistake came through was that it turned out to be a more detailed story outline. It's not even an outline, it's basically the entire story without spoken words in it. So many of these paragraphs basically turned directly into words on the page. So I sort of did everything twice, which was dumb, especially after finding out the flow I could enter and just let the words come naturally. I should have just had a bullet list of these things are gonna happen, these things are gonna happen, these things are gonna happen. Maybe start with the ending and then, you know, and then go into writing the story and then go into digitizing. And then, well, my next step is translating from English to Danish. It's gonna be fun. It's also just knowing what it takes. You know, I did all of this for Calamity without knowing what I went into, how much it took to come from the first idea to the final product, which is not the final product, but you know what I mean. I'm going to do a sort of, maybe a more bare-boned description of the human society, because that's another thing I figured out. It was actually kind of nice to just write stuff, and then if I needed something that I didn't have, I would make that up, because, you know, everything he was made up. I think the personas are so important to do, so that has to be at the same level, so I get a feel and get into the minds of these characters and how would they react to stuff. Instead of having everything down, I think I'm gonna try having a lot down and then, or some down, and then when I find I need stuff, make it up on the fly, sort of. So I get a much more fluid motion between writing in the book and making background stuff instead of making the background stuff. I can't write yet. Making the personas. Okay, I still can't write yet because I need more background stuff. Okay. And it really halted the progression. Just getting started on the next as soon as possible, basically. That's gonna be the plan. Another thing that I really liked about my process of first writing it by hand, besides having this cool first draft to look back on, then having a couple of days off and then going back and digitizing it, I think that works really, really well. It really made me think more about what I wrote. It made me see some patterns that I could break. It made me, like, if I found a word I really liked and used as a crutch in my free writing, I could replace that with something else, you know. I could move some stuff around. That's why the Calamity that you will see is called version 1.1.0. I have removed stuff that I felt would work better in another form. I think that was also a key takeaway that worked really well. Calamity is out! Read it if you haven't already. Wow. Closing thoughts. I don't really know what to do with myself right now. I'm happy about what I wrote. I don't know if it's good, but I'm really happy about it. There are definitely more versions for you to dig into and see what I changed, and, you know, I want this project to be me becoming better at writing, so I have to find a balance between revisiting old work and updating them to new versions and actually moving on to the next thing. I hope everyone would like this. I want people's help. I want their constructive criticism. I want feedback. What's good? What's bad? What could change? How could I change it? That's the whole idea with this project, besides getting some of these stories that I have in my head out there. It's out there. Onwards to the next short story. Yes, let's go. Let's go.